So, I watched a video, leak project, was just today. It was put up last night, December 7th, with Rex Bear and Diamond from Oppenheimer Ranch. And it was a good video, there's nothing wrong with it. But there was a moment there where they were talking about how they got in a fight in Utah and how Diamond claimed, metaphorically I assume, he slapped him with his knowledge about chemtrails and that they're contrails, pollution, and cosmic radiation. So I'm presenting the argument that he doesn't know the facts on aerosol injections in this atmosphere. Alright, so we have an article here. This isn't really proof much, but it's a good place to start. U.S. government admits plan to spray the skies with chemtrails. The U.S. government and MIT have announced plans for an experiment to cover the sun by spraying our skies with chemtrails. The project has been named Solar Radiation Management and involves spraying aluminum oxide and various other chemicals to see if they can alter climate change by blocking the sun's rays to cool the earth. Prep for that reports. According to an article in MIT's Technology Review, click here. So if you want to go to this link up here, newspunch.com/us.government-admits blah blah blah. See up here. And click on the MIT Technology Review. The new experimentation will be small scale. Now this was December 8th. This was today. No, this wasn't today. Wait. Right here. Doesn't tell us an exact day. I'm looking. Oh. Probably today, maybe. I'm not sure. But moving on. A pair of Harvard climate scientists are preparing small-scale atmospheric experiments that could offer insights into the feasibility and risks of deliberately altering the climate to ease global warming. It would be among the earliest official geoengineering-related experiments conducted outside of a controlled laboratory or a computer module, underscoring the growing sense of urgency among scientists to begin seriously studying the possibility as the threat of climate change mounts. Sometime next year, Harvard professors David Keith and Frank Kusch hope to launch a high-altitude balloon tethered to a gondola equipped with propellers and sensors from a site in Tucson, Arizona. After initial engineering tests, the Strato Cruiser would spray a fine mist of materials such as sulfur dioxide, alumina, or calcium carbonate into the stratosphere. Sensors would then measure the reflectivity of the particles, the degree to which they disperse coalesce, and the way they interact with other compounds in the atmosphere. So, U.S. scientists and the United Nations have teamed up to create a geoengineered governance initiative. Rumblings of SRM that have been heard since 2016. Spraying our skies with aluminum has been very big backers, including former CIA Director John Brennan. Okay, now this is all just cover up to what's really going on. Alright, so this is not factual, this is BS. I'm sure guys from Oppenheimer Rangers agree, but what he doesn't realize is that when they come out and say things like this, it's their way of manipulating the facts. So there is some truth to this, very small amount of truth, which is that they've been spraying this guy, but they lie, oh, it's coming out, and it's been talked about since 2016. Alright, so I'm going to get into the facts of this, right? So let's go ahead and close this. Let's go over here. Alright. So, geoengineeringwatch.org has, and another website has this same article, or similar article, very similar, with the same documents, government documents. Sorry, I have a $100 refurbished Lenovo computer. Unfortunately, I didn't partake in the major contributions of the corruption in humanity, like some people who have come from Fortune 500 companies or were a professor of some sort. Not mentioning any names, but you guys know what I'm talking about. But it's okay. Doesn't mean they're bad people. I just don't have the resources that they do. Alright, so massive U.S. Senate document on national and global weather modification. Dane Wigington, geoengineeringwatch.org. How big does the climate engineering elephant in the room need to be before it can no longer be hidden in plain sight? How much more historical proof do we need of the ongoing climate engineering weather warfare before the denial of the masses crumbles? When will populations around the globe bring to justice all of those responsible for the ongoing and rapidly worsening worldwide weather warfare assault? At the bottom of this post is a PDF file containing the entire congressional report from 1978 that we have recently located. This report is just under 750 pages in length. 20 key excerpts are posted below to give a general overview. It is a mountain of information that further confirms the ongoing extensive involvement of our government in climate modification weather warfare. This document also confirms the involvement of foreign governments around the globe, even governments that would otherwise have been considered hostile to U.S. interests. Within this text, a great many aspects and consequences of the ongoing national and global weather modification programs are discussed. Legal implications, including the need for total immunity from any form of prosecution, biological implications, societal implications, environmental implications, etc. Named in the document are federal agencies involved as well as major universities. Again, because the entire document is a long and arduous read, some excerpts are posted below to give insight into the document's contents. The amount of data to confirm the ongoing climate engineering insanity continues to grow. One additional example of documents already located is an ICAS report to the Executive Office of the President on Climate Engineering from 1966. It can be found here. The attached extensive congressional document is a revealing and detailed addition to the data that has already been compiled. My most sincere gratitude to Steve Grimwood for locating this very important document. So, let's see here. Here's the highlighted part. There's no question that during a dry season, cloud seeding aggravates conditions to produce drought, and during a wet cycle, it triggers even more rain and probably floods. Sounds familiar. According to complaints we get, the pattern is still remaining as it did in the early 1960s. When a thunderstorm appears to the west or is startling to build up, a plane will move in mysteriously out of nowhere and maybe fly once or twice along the leading edge of the thunderstorm, disappear, and the thunderstorm just practically dissipates. In a recent article contributed by the Tri-State National Weather Association to a nationally circulated publication devoted to organic agriculture, the following evils supposedly brought on by weather modification were cataloged. Cloud seeding has been responsible for the great 5-year drought in the northeast United States. This was 1978, by the way. Isolated sections in the northeast have experienced 18 years of drought to cloud seeding. Weather disturbances in the South Atlantic have been eliminated and has produced the East Coast rainfall by 30%, rain that is needed if agriculture is to be successful. The average dairy farmer on the East Coast living in an area of cloud seeding has averaged a net financial loss because of cloud seeding. Crop production losses in Franklin County, Pennsylvania alone have amounted to $50 million. When effects of seeding wear off, cloudbursts occur, causing floods, destroying crops, buildings, and drowning people as well as livestock. Seeding has been responsible for the serious air pollution problems. Mental retardation and insanity are traceable to cloud seeding chemicals. Poisoning of all living matter is directly related to cloud seeding. Emphysema is 3 times higher in areas of heavy cloud seeding. Cancer is virulently out of proportion. Financial losses to agriculture and related industries run into the billions. Forest trees as well as cultivated orchards are dying from chemical reactions taking place in the air due to the addition of cloud seeding agents. Sorry, the cloud seeding is making me cough. The atmosphere has been rendered completely biologically incompatible with all living matter, which includes animals, plants, and moving on. If you want to read this for yourself, you go to the bottom of this article on this website, and you click on this PDF button, and you can get the whole 750 pages. Before I do that, I'd like to pull up who Dane Wigington is. He has a background in solar energy. He is a former employee of Bechtel Power Corp and was a licensed contractor in California and Arizona. His professional residence was featured in a cover article on the world's largest renewable energy magazine, Home Power. He owns a large wildlife preserve next to Lake Shasta in Northern California. Dane made the decision to focus all of his efforts and energy on full-time investigation of the geoengineering solar radiation management issues when he began to lose very significant amounts of solar uptake due to ever-increasing solar obscuration, global dimming caused from the ongoing jet aircraft spraying aerosol dispersions. Dane also noted a significant and accelerating decline in overall forest health, along with increasing UV radiation levels. These factors and others were catalysts that triggered Dane's testing and research into the geoengineering issue, which has been ongoing for over a decade and a half. As the lead researcher for GlobalEngineeringWatch.org, Dane has investigated all levels of geoengineering, solar radiation management, and global ionosphere heaters like HAARP. Dane has appeared on an extensive number of interviews and films to explain the environmental dangers we face on global level from the ongoing climate engineering assault. Okay. Now, I may have getting some more conclusive doubt from you, so I pulled up the government documents released here. So I'm on page 10 out of 784. I'm going to move forward. I'm going to show you something here. Look at this. Hail suppression, the hail problem, modification of hail seeding technologies, evolution of hail suppression technologies, surveys of hail. This is 1978, people. Modification of severe storms, hurricanes, generation and characteristics of hurricanes, modification of hurricanes, tornadoes, modification of tornadoes, dissipation of fog and stratus clouds, cold fog modification, warm fog modification, lightning suppression, lightning modification, evaluation of lightning suppression technology. think we would go back here. Okay, and do you think this is fake? This is bringing up serious charges. The FBI would be looking into this. Anyone who forges or presents government documents would be facing criminal charges. And this has been around since 2015, 2016, okay? There's been plenty of time for them to find it. It's not like, oh, well, they're just learning about it. They're investigating it. Don't give me that crap. Something here, I can't remember exactly what it is. What else in there? Show you how, like, this has been going on since the 40s. Right here, history of weather modification prior to 1946. Page 26. Let's go to page 26. In addition to specific research programs sponsored by federal agencies, there are other functions related to weather modification which are performed in several places in the executive branch. Various federal advisory panels and committees and their staffs, established to conduct in-depth studies and prepare the comprehensive reports, to provide advance and recommendations, or to coordinate federal weather modification programs, have been housed and supported within executive departments, agencies, or offices. The program whereby federal and non-federal U.S. weather modification activities are reported to the government is administered by the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA. Within the Commerce Department, the State Department negotiates agreements with other nations which might be affected by U.S. experiments and has arranged for federal agencies and other U.S. investigators to participate in international meteorological projects, including those in weather modification. In the United Nations, the United States has been active in promoting the adoption of a treaty banning weather modification as a military weapon. And it doesn't say they were successful. It doesn't say that they've been promoting. It's a cover-up, possibly. But it doesn't mean they didn't do it. Because I think we do live we are not in the info war anymore. We are in the freaking controlling the world war. In accordance with the mandates of several public laws or self-initiated by the agencies or interagency committees, the executive branch of the federal government has undertaken a number of major weather modification policy studies over the past 25 years. Each of the completed major studies was followed by a report which included findings and recommendations. The most recent study is the one noted earlier that is being conducted by the Weather Modification Advisory Board on behalf of the Secretary of Commerce pursuant to requirements of the National Weather Modification Policy Act of 1976. Nearly all previous studies emphasized the needs for designation of a land agency, increased basic meteorologic research, increased funding, improvement of support and cooperation from agencies in consideration of legal, social, economic, environmental, and international aspects. Let's see here. In 1958, the National Science Foundation was designated lead agency of the Federal Weather Modification Research by Public Law 85-510, a role which is maintained until 1968 when Public Law 9407 removed the responsibility from NSF. So, as you can see, like, 6 public laws specifically dealing with weather modification have been enacted since 1953. So, remember that box that freaking Golden State Bridge and made it wobble? I think it was Golden State Bridge. here we go. The modern period in weather modification is about 3 decades old, dating from events in 1946 when Schaefer and Langmuir demonstrated that a cloud of supercooled water droplets could be transformed into ice crystals when seeded with dry ice. Activities in areas among scientists, the commercial cloud seeders, and government sponsors and policymakers have exhibited a nearly 10-year cycle behavior over the ensuing years. Each of the 3 decades since the late 1940s has been an initial burst of enthusiasm and activity in weather modification experiments and or operations, a mid-course period of controversially reservations and retrenchment, in the following period of compatibility assessment and policy examination, with the issuance of major federal reports with comprehensive recommendations on the future course. The first such period ended with the publication of the final report of the Advisory Committee on Weather Control in 1957. In 1959, Dr. Barbara Broad, then Associate Director of the National Science Foundation, summarized the significance of that study in the 1959 congressional hearing. 1966 was replete with government weather modification studies, major ones conducted by National Academy of Sciences, the Special Commission on Weather Modification of the National Science Foundation, the Interdepartmental Committee for Atmospheric Sciences, and the Legislative Reference Service of the Library of Congress. Okay. Potentially they have the power to heat up the planet by manipulating low pressure, high pressure, high temperature, or moving winds, like high temperature, low temperatures. I mean, this has been going on for 60 years. Look at this history of weather modification, okay? The expansion and research operation weather modification projects has increased dramatically since World War II. That means they've been doing it since World War II. Weather modification has not developed as an isolated and independent field of research, but for over a century has been parallel to and related to progress in understanding weather processes generally. Earlier experiences in weather modification may not have been very different from contemporary experiences in such matters in experimental design, evaluation of results, partially successful projects, and efforts to base experiments on established scientific principles. This is in 78 though, guys. Imagine what they know now, what they're doing now. Look at this. Mentions 1887. Still other schemes and contrivances were proposed and patented. J.B. Atwater was granted a patent in 1887 for a scheme to dissipate tornadoes by detonating an explosive charge in their centers, and other was granted to Louis Gathman in 1891 for seeding clouds for rain by exploding a shell containing liquid carbonic acid gas at cloud height. The latter concept antedating by over 50 years the most recent carbon dioxide seeding projects. There continued to be adherents to the idea that explosions could cause rainfall. This belief was reinforced by evidence of such a connection in a book by Edward Powers called War and the Weather, published in 1871 and 1890 editions, in which the author recounted the instances in which rain followed battles, mostly from North America and Europe during the 19th century. This is also how you control the for food agriculture. You if there's supposed to be major droughts across this country for like 20 years historically. Diamond knows this, and we didn't get them because they are manipulating weather from aerosol injections or chemtrails, whatever you want to call it. Rose by any name is still a fucking rose. You call a fucking rose a turd, it's still a fucking rose. Potato, potato, tomato, tomato. Look at this, regional. Total areas coverage and percent of area coverage for the 48 coterminous states of the United States by weather modification operations for each year, July 1950 through June 1956. Table 1 is the summary of weather modification operations for fiscal years 1966, 67, 68, compiled by the National Science Foundation from field operators' reports, which the Foundation required to be fulfilled. Figure 3 shows the locations in the continental United States for both operational and research weather modification projects during fiscal year 1968 and September 1968, as provided by Public Law 90-407. National Science Foundation was no longer authorized to require the submission of reports on operational weather modification projects. Weather modification activities are now reported to the Department of Commerce under provisions of public law. This is in 78, so things have changed probably by now. Technology of planned weather modification. Chapter 3. Okay, in 78. Call it cloud seeding, okay? (1978). So if your argument's all, well, they were shooting things in the atmosphere, no, they were flying jets, spraying out shit. Because you gotta think, how can they do this on a massive level and still keep the public docile and not flipping out about what they're doing to the planes, commercial jet airliners? Remember, Boeing was giving planes to Nazi Germany and America during World War II. Remember that? They were sending planes down to South America. South America would tear them apart, refurbish them, to Nazi Germany, and Germany would arm them, put weapons in them. Project Paperclip ties this in. What's his name? That went to the North Pole. Baird. Baird. Hey, look at what's this. That looks awfully familiar to what Rex saw in California when he went to that Air Force base after the earthquake. This was in 1978. Precipitation instrument site, including from left to right, hail cube, anemometer, rain, hail separator, and Belfort Wayne precipitation gauge. Okay. hail seeding technologies. The most significant field programs of hail suppression during recent years have included those conducted in the Soviet Union, in Alberta, in South Africa, and in northeast Colorado. The National Hail Research Experiment. In the course of each of the projects, some of which are still underway, various procedural changes have been initiated. In all of them except South Africa, the suppression techniques are based on increasing the number of hail embryos by seeding the cloud with ice nuclei. Usually the seeding material is silver iodide, but the Russians also use lead iodide, and on occasion other agents such as sodium chloride and copper sulfate have been used. The essential problems in seeding for hail suppression are related to how, when, and where to get the seeding agent into potential hail clouds and how to identify such clouds. Here we go. Upper large droplets freeze and grow, combine blah blah blah. Only in 4 to 5 minutes. 2 to 3 centimeters can occur in only 45 minutes. In the several Russian projects, the seeding agent is introduced at selected cloud heights from rockets or anti-aircraft shells, so I guess they do shoot them up in the air. The number of volleys required and the position of injection being determined by radar echo characteristics and past experience in a given operational region. That's in hail suppression. But this is in 1978. Like I said, how do you do this on a massive scale? It talks about just pretty much releasing chemicals in the air. Right here we go. In the United States, cold fog dispersal operations have been conducted, for example, by commercial airlines, usually with dry ice as the seeding agent. The U.S. Air Force has also operated ground-based liquid and propane systems as domestic and foreign bases, which have been effective in dissipating cold fog over runways, thus reducing flight delays and diversions. Conducted largely at airports, cold fog suppression usually accomplished aircraft which drop various freezing agents, such as dry ice or silver iodide, as they fly over the fog-covered runways. The agents initiate crystal formation and lead to precipitation of the growing crystals. Ground-based systems. Still looking for more airline here, because that's how they sold them. Hey, we can make it to where you don't have the issues with weather and make more money. Oh, well, let's do it. We'll make more money. Research and development on warm fog dispersal systems has continued under sponsorship of the U.S. Air Force, using both passive heat systems and thermokinetic systems which combine both heat and mechanical thrust. Air Force is conducted during late 1979 Otis Air Force Base, Massachusetts, after which it is installed operation 1982. Wait. After which it is to be installed. Oh, this is a future. It's talking about how they're going to do it in 1982. Okay, so discussion of the Air Force Development Program and of the concurrent studies and interest on the Federal Aviation Administration in this thermokinetic fog dispersal system is found in Chapter 5 of this report. Chapter 5. Alright. Here. 10. Chapter 5. Federal activities and weather modification. Overview of federal activities, legislative. 193. Mark my words, you guys are going to hear a lot more of this here in the next couple of months. That's how things are for me. I, that's why I do what I do. This is just, people do the work, and then I make it to where the public actually has to hear it. So they don't have to believe it, because we believe in freedom. You can freely believe whatever you want, but you can freely believe that freaking spaghetti monsters rule everything. You can freely believe that the sky is yellow. You can freely believe the earth is flat. You can freely believe that your farts smell wonderful. You can freely believe you can shove food up your ass and poop out shit out of your mouth. I don't give a fuck. Believe whatever you want. You can drag a horse to water, but you can't make the horse drink the water. Alright? So I'm gonna get into all 700 freaking some pages of this. That's for you to do. I know already of this stuff. But what I am going to do, I'll show you some more here. So when I use Bing, fuck Google. So I searched May 1970 because that's when the document was released, Committee on Commerce. And look, Railroad Amendments Act of 1978. I typed up solar radiation management. Solar radiation management. Governance initiative. They're getting public with the global. What if you get into this? They talk about global warming, okay? And Diamond says, I want to say he talks out of both sides of his mouth, but I don't know if he's in on it or what's going on. But you know, and then Rex is tied to Gaia, and Gaia's got some bad rep. I don't know, dude. Gaia is not. they're cowards. They believe that. Well, we're just doing whatever we can do to get the word out. Like, okay. I understand. Not everybody has balls still. Alright, now these chemtrails are actually scientifically, technically called stratospheric aerosol injection. Okay, so if anyone gets uptight about saying chemtrails, say, I apologize. What I meant to say was stratospheric aerosol injections. And then they can say whatever they want, but it's not a freaking conspiracy theory. It's not a crazy person thinking this is, they're saying they're gonna do it. And they've probably been doing it. There's no probably about it. They've been doing it. And then there was a picture of Trump that was inside of a jet with the cans of these chemicals, but I couldn't find it. But I found the pictures of the stuff in the airplanes. Look at this one. Now they may argue, oh, that's for crop dusting. That's for spraying Monsanto's. Don't give me this shit. Look at this. Wingtip engines. Okay. Alright. Give me this shit that's pollution and cosmic radiation. Fucking crap. You're the one who needs to be smacked in the face, Diamond. Alright, when it comes to this stuff, you're not the expert. When it comes to farming and self-sufficiency and the history of the planet and what you went to school for and what you're an expert at, that's all you, buddy. But you're not an expert at chemtrail or aerosol and stratospheric aerosol injections. You're not the expert. I'm sorry to tell you that, but you're not. You don't know what you're talking about. And here's all the proof to back it up. Oh, and let's get into further proof. Continue with the proof. Fair act use. I don't care if I'm demonetized because I'm not here to make a buck. Because the more everyone knows, the easier everyone's life's going to be. And the easier everyone's life's going to be, the easier my life's going to be. Cue the music video. Alright, I'm gonna go back just in case that my computer didn't show all that. So we're gonna try again.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Council on Foreign Relations. I am Judy Woodruff of the PBS NewsHour, and I am delighted to introduce our speaker this afternoon. I don't think there could be a better time or moment for us to hear from the Director of the Central Intelligence Agency. Without further ado, please welcome Director John Brennan.
Another example is the array of technologies, often referred to collectively as geoengineering, that potentially could help reverse the warming effects of global climate change. One that has gained my personal attention is stratospheric aerosol injection, or SAI, a method of seeding the stratosphere with particles that can help reflect the sun's heat in much the same way that volcanic eruptions do. An SAI program could program could limit global temperature increases, reducing some risks associated with higher temperatures and providing the world economy additional time to transition from fossil fuels. This process is also relatively inexpensive. The National Research Council estimates that a fully deployed SAI program would cost about $10 billion yearly. As promising as it may be, moving forward on SAI would also raise a number of challenges for our government and for the international community. On the technical side, greenhouse gas emission reductions would still have to accompany SAI to address other climate change effects, such as ocean acidification, because SAI alone would not remove greenhouse gases from the atmosphere. On the geopolitical side, the technology's potential to alter weather patterns and benefit certain regions of the world at the expense of other regions could trigger sharp opposition by some nations. Others might seize on SAI's benefits and back away from their commitment to carbon dioxide reductions. And as with other breakthrough technologies, global norms and standards are lacking to guide the deployment and implementation of SAI and other geoengineering initiatives. I very much appreciate the invitation to come back here in the Council on Foreign Relations. And as I say to all the groups I speak to, it is a tremendous honor and privilege every day to be referred to as the Director of Central Intelligence Agency.
Dreamer first. Tell me about Dreamer.
When I saw the State of the Black Union, that bribery really moved me and my friend. I shared to everybody that comes over here, especially black folks, because they need to hear from that. You know, so I know all of us, because what he said affects all of us. He said something that really hit home about this phenomenon of chemtrails. And when I was a kid, I used to see these trails in the sky all the time. And so it's kind of obnoxious or whatever. And we started to see a whole bunch of an argument and you didn't know why. Okay, and you really didn't know why. I mean, everybody was fighting. So he started riffing about the chemtrails, and he started to say things that hit home so hard. And I would recommend that everybody try to get what he said online or wherever.
Alright. Now there was another video I had linked to some of the stratosphere aerosol injection videos that I labeled chemtrails about a year ago. This dude came on in typical control agent, came on and said a bunch of stuff against what I was claiming, and I showed him a video of pilots mentioning how these aren't contrails like it says here on the bottom of this video. Pilots disagree with contrail. I think this is it. Chemtrails. Let's see if I can find it. Anything. Cloud seeding. Look at that. Let's see that again. It's massive. That is not a contrail. Contrails don't last that long. They're like, oh my god. The video I shared a link to has been removed. I assume YouTube was like, don't be telling them the facts here now. We are controlled we present to you the way. 8-second video. This billboard, look up, there's a new cloud in town. Oh. Why Harvard scientist is pretty confident chemtrails don't exist? Because they threaten his fucking life. And he wants to in on it. He's a coward. Moving on. Here we go. This is it.
Aircraft making a condensation trail is very similar in many ways to when you go outside on a cold day and exhale. You create a condensation trail. That little cloud is a condensation trail. Now, if you take a 2-mile walk on a cold day and you can turn around and you can see your condensation trail tracking all the way back for 2 miles. That's how crazy it is to think that what we're looking in the sky is actually condensation trails.
The contrails, not the chemical, the contrails occur because of cold air, minus 30. It takes a high altitude, around 30,000 feet plus. There's carbon dioxide and water vapor in that exhaust. That turns to ice crystals, and that's what you see, the white stream behind it. Those white crystals of ice warm up, dissolve, and the smoke goes away. And it never lasts more than a minute. What we're seeing now, and I first could not believe it, and I started looking at the skies, and these are not normal. They're not natural. There's something going on. I don't know who it is or why they're doing it. All I can testify is it's not natural and it's not normal. It's got to be some outside influence doing that. Thank you.
I'm here to give you testimony that chemtrails, they're not contrails, are indeed real. They're spraying almost every day. I watch the clouds and watch the spraying program going on. I want to tell you that we're in very great danger from the pollution that's coming down over us. And we've been led astray by the military-industrial complex, and they're responsible for the cloud's creation and weather manipulation programs. They're dark operations. That's why they're not out in the media.
I look around and I see people are starting to look up and see this. Many times I've spoken about chemtrails, and I get this blank look on my face. What are you talking about? I'm saying, look up. As a pilot, before I fly, I look up. And so, boy, they're really out there working.
When you look up at the sun and you see a white haze, that is aluminum floating in the air right now, and it's coming from the aircraft.
There's a huge amount of aluminum being found because these sprays have aluminum, strontium, barium, manganese. And there's a lot of argument that aluminum is very common to be found, but aluminum is only common in a bonded form. It's not common in a free form, and we're finding high rates of free aluminum in the soil, which is not natural.
The metal compounds that are being used are environmentally dangerous. We need to be monitoring them. We need to be testing them.
Okay, these previous guys, I've watched exactly what they do, and yes, they are correct. I've seen exactly the same stuff, so ditto marks on those. You want some figures? Okay, latest water test, tested the rain. 13,100 micrograms per liter of aluminum in the rain in 2013. Normally, it should be 0. So 13,100 is pretty damn much, folks. It used to be 0, then it was 100s in the 2000s, and then in since 2010, it's into the 1000s. And
right there. Diamond. Seriously, dude? You use rainwater. 35-year USFS biologist. He's an expert.
The latest 13,100. In the snow on Mount Shasta, pristine Mount Shasta, 61,000 micrograms per liter. 4 times the amount that is found in the soil up there. Where in the hell is this stuff coming from if it's not coming from the soil?
We have clouds in the sky we've never seen before. Almost every day I'm seeing clouds I've never seen before. And NASA has been even named a few of these new clouds. It's really interesting, but NASA is a corporation. I want you to know that.
NASA has also conducted a research program in what they call metallized fuels. We're actually putting aluminum oxide right in the fuel because it has 2 atoms of aluminum and 3 atoms of oxygen. So during the combustion process, it releases all that oxygen and dramatically increases efficiency, but it leaves the aluminum in the air.
We got things coming from sky down, and it's a huge, huge problem. Because as it comes down, what happens is a couple of things. Is that it actually is in our air, we breathe it. And as we breathe it, it's actually going to go up through our nostrils, into our brain, easiest access to our brain frontal lobe. The contaminants that have been identified, which already been mentioned, are aluminum. Aluminum is the #1 free radical generator to the brain to cause early apoptosis, which is early death of brain, and it begins to set off the scar tissue, which we call the amygdalin, which is part of the chemical matrix related to Alzheimer's.
I'm a neurologist practicing in Reading for 17 years, and in the past 5 years, I've seen the number of patients with Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's, and other neurodegenerative diseases tremendously increase, almost quadruple.
I became interested in chemtrails about 8 years ago when I was in Hawaii, and the Hawaiians are really being very vocal about it. I concur about the increasing number of Alzheimer's. They have been able to take the aluminum and micronize it, which means it'll stay up longer. But it also means, and I don't know if any of you have noticed some metallic taste in your mouth when they're spraying, but you inhale that, it goes up through your cribriform plate and through your sinuses and into the brain.
As you heard, to spray nanoparticles, very small particles. These nanoparticles, they basically trigger a programmed cell death in the brain, and that is the ultimate path we see in Alzheimer's.
That's problem number 1, because when we look at the Alzheimer issue, we say those are the old. The real problem is, and the real scare I have, is as I am a father of 2, I'm a grandfather of 3, so the drama is our children. ADD started in the 70s. Autism was not on the radar. There was no documents, there was no information. It was 1 in 100,000 children. Today, what we have is 1 in 48 boys. I was part of the early group that was looking for aluminum in ADD and ADHD. And all of those children that started to develop those phenomena had high levels of aluminum. When we figured out protocols to detox them out, to free the body of those particular contaminants, what happened is that their brains came back. When we do this to the age, it doesn't come back as quick, but it will come back. But I'm seeing Alzheimer's in 56 years old. Back in the 70s, Alzheimer's when you were 80.
If you remember 8 to 10 years ago, there was this big move to get rid of aluminum from underarm deodorant because it would cause Alzheimer's. Look what they're doing to us now.
I want to give you a little bit of history on the background behind nanoparticles has been described before. A nanometer is 1 billionth of a meter. It's very small. In fact, if you have particles, say, that are 40 or 50 nanometers across, you can take and line 50 of them up next to a single red blood cell. These things are extremely tiny. They're pervasive.
The collapse and decrease of agriculture is something I worry about even more than the previous info about autism and Alzheimer's.
Believe me, I'm seriously concerned with what I'm watching. As a wildlife biologist, I've been watching the ecosystem collapse. When you lose all your stream organisms, when you have aluminum overload in your streams, you're killing your microbial bacteria and you're disrupting the entire ecosystem. So it goes way beyond just a little bit of pollution. How did Monsanto know to create aluminum-resistant plants? I don't think I've heard anybody ask that question. Okay.
Insects. I've done studies in Siskiyou County. They're at 20% of normal. The aquatic insects basically made a nosedive in 2006 to about 20% of normal. So far this year, I've sampled 200 trout stomachs. 98% of them are empty. So sorry about the trout fishing, fellows, The mayflies, stoneflies, dipterus, and caddisflies are damn near gone. The terrestrial sampling is down to about 20% of normal, except for pest species like ants. We're seeing a loss of the major bird species, and as the gentleman said, the ecosystem is unraveling, and Audubon's been telling you that for years.
The materials that are going into the environment right now, aluminum oxide nanoparticles and barium nanoparticles, these just happen to be the same materials that they use in nanothermate explosives. And so when this stuff settles down out of the air into the environment, it is small enough to be absorbed through the root structure of the trees in the forest. And so when there's a forest fire, and there will be a forest fire, those fires burn dramatically hotter. The point is that the cost of firefighting, the cost in the healthcare system have nearly doubled in the last 10 years. The amount of acreage is lost because of fires. The impact on human health is dramatic.
I personally tested water and aluminum, and I found aluminum had 47 times the normal expected amounts. Strontium had 10 to 20 times the amounts. Barium was 20 times. This is what the stuff looks like here. Collected, it looks, most people just think it's a cobweb, but I tested it. It has outrageous amounts of barium, strontium, and aluminum, but they destroy the sample, so I'm not letting this get away from me.
You know, these tests are international in scope. We're seeing this all over the world, guys. Okay, pH of acid soils is 20 times more alkaline. The aluminum in the soil has doubled in the last 10 years. The rain normal was 5.6. It's 20 times more alkaline. Aluminum blocks essential nutrients. I am unable in my garden to restore normal pH, and that's because nanoparticles are now in the circulatory systems of both plants and humans.
The Air Force conducted a study starting in 1993. It was called In Vitro Toxicity of Aluminum Nanoparticles in Rat Alveolar Macrophages. That's a real fancy way of saying testing the effect of aluminum nanoparticles on the white blood cells in the little air sacs in your lung, the alveoli. And what they found in this 8-year study was that these particles, when you're exposed to them long enough, it suppresses the ability of your white blood cells to defend you from airborne infections coming into your lungs. So it suppresses your immune system. But they also found that these same particles, once they get into your system, they can actually go through the barrier in each one of the cells. They get inside the cells, and these particles can actually suppress the ability of mitochondria, which are in the cells that help to gobble up toxins and things that will be harmful to the nucleus and the reproduction process of the cells in your body. These processes are suppressed, and so essentially by breathing this material in, your immune system is dramatically suppressed.
I wrote to the federal government because Air Force wrote a book, and on the first page of the book they said, we're going to control the weather by the year 2025. I asked them, what are they doing spraying these chemicals on the public? I said, there's violation of United States Code 50 USC 1520, which prohibits the American government from experimenting on the U.S. citizens with chemical agents. I said that law also requires who's ever experimenting, when the federal government does it, that they have to report to Congress within 30 days.
All right, not only that, but they are not allowed to do medical treatment without your consent. Fluoride in your water is medical treatment without your consent.
They wrote back, they said they don't know what I'm talking about. We have enough evidence that there's this spraying going all over the place.
We were warned about the takeover of our freedoms by the military-industrial complex by both Eisenhower and Kennedy. They're gaining traction on us, folks. We are in trouble more than just a spraying program.
All I can say is it's about time we get up in arms about this, because it is affecting our health. It's high time that we as citizens of this great country take action.
And like these men, I'm not a coward. I don't care, oh, what are you going to do? They're so powerful, they have so much control, they have so much technology. I don't give a fuck. It doesn't mean I bow down, yes, the master. Bah! Diamond, for all that shit you give people, you look in the mirror, dude.
Board of Supervisors in Suffolk County, New York, they outlawed geochemical engineering. Hawaii passed an ordinance prohibiting geochemical engineering. I urge you to bar geoengineering in Shasta County. and pass an ordinance, at least ask some damn questions. What's the hell is all this aluminum doing here? Why are the trees dying, fishes dying? Why is there Alzheimer and aluminum spiking? And why are these fibers on the ground here in Shasta County? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mormon.
You can go watch this video. You know, we don't have to watch it all, but you get the idea. I'm sorry to call you guys out, but I'm not going to stand by while you continue to do this shit. Okay? I am still going to participate in Watching League Project and going to LeagueCon in Boulder 4/4/2020. And, you know, I mean, look, the evidence has been presented. Now, this was a boxing match, a friendly boxing match. I came out swinging. Okay, we can still hug and shake hands and be good sports about this. Alright, so we don't have to be all bitter about each other. You know, I love a lot of things that Diamond does say, and a lot of information he does present is very valuable. But I feel like he's talking out both sides of his mouth. Doesn't mean I've never done it. Takes one to know one, whatever. I understand. You know what I mean? But I'm not a Mr. Expert at things, you know, exposing the climate change, which a lot of the information he does present is valuable, and I would still stay subscribed and subscribe to his channel and go to his website and buy stuff. I'm not saying don't support him. I'm just saying call him out on his bullshit. Especially when he was offensive to Rex about saying the chemtrail, like, dude, really? That triggered me. And no, I'm not a snowflake unicorn Democrat role. I'm an independent. I think for myself. I'm not a party guy. But anyways, I just wanted to present that to y'all.